All right, right. We is live, and I'm sure it'll take a minute for the Facebook event that I'm in to actually acknowledge that we're live. It usually waits till right at 1:30. Some of you might be catching this from a different platform, so I'm going to wait a moment here for the for the Facebook platform to go live, because sometimes it doesn't like to do it. And then I want to make sure that we are everywhere else, if that's going correctly. Here we go. Looks like we are about to stream live to the Facebook event as well, so that we can get everybody going. And as always, those of you who are dropping in to say hello, we've got the comments section going. I'm going to be doing my best to see that as we go. I'm checking my streaming software over here, making sure we're working, because sometimes it does not. And if you are joining us, then please do find us on all the different platforms. I'm looking at all my options here. Says we're going live. And this is when I gotta get somebody else to tell me that we are. So if you're here, if you're on, if you're catching me live, let me know. Tell me who you are, tell me where you are, tell me what's going on. And I'm gonna get on my phone to see if I can find out if I'm live. Yes, I am on my phone to see. Yay! Okay. Thank you, Diora. Where else we got here? Awesome. All right. So I can tell we are live. For some reason, I'm not seeing all the comments. I don't know why. I dropped on my phone to see some comments, and on there I could see some of you, which was interesting. Let me see if I can get on here and look real quick. Yay! All right, I see Diora, I see Kelly. I don't know why I can't see y'all's comments on my computer, but we're just gonna go anyways. So, all right, because I don't want to have like 18 minutes of figuring this out. So, yay! It's only this is fourth time's charm to finally get this stuff all figured out. It looks like. All right. So, what are we talking about today? Today we are talking about the toxic ties that bind and the social impact, right? The impact on our happiness, our success, even our health in so many different capacities. So, I mean, have you ever noticed yourself picking up habits or mannerisms or speaking like, or just being more like the people that you spend more time with? You ever noticed that before? Where you're just picking up those habits, mannerisms, language, just so many different aspects of when you're around people. P.S. I have my notes down below, so you're going to see me doing this so that I make sure I stay on track, because I can be really good at not being on track. Have you ever had to step out of a friendship or step back from a family member or a coworker, or maybe even step completely out of a romantic relationship because you found yourself just being drained and like drugged down from it, and that just wasn't working for you, right? We want to have those relationships that fill us up, not drain us. No vampires, right? Do you recognize and or believe that the people you choose to spend time with have an impact on how you show up in the world, who you be, right? What you do, how you do it? Do you believe that that has an impact? Have you experienced that kind of impact? And do you think it's important to take the time to evaluate relationships that you have, both friendly, acquaintances, romantic, and family or otherwise? Do you think it's important to take the time to evaluate those relationships and notice how they may be actually impacting you. So those are some of the things we're going to kind of talk about today, right? The objective today is to explore and gain awareness around the impact of our social environment. And this isn't exactly a new conversation. I'm hoping that maybe I drop some knowledge today that has you have an aha or a new moment, because I always ask you to listen with a child's mind around how you hear the information, right? And with radical response ability around the information. But I want you to consider these spaces in your life and the opportunity to gain awareness about it, to potentially build some resiliency around it, and to feel more empowered in these situations with, at the very least, knowledge, right? We will go over some tips, tools, tricks you can do towards the end to create that empowerment and that resiliency, but sometimes just knowledge alone can get the wheels turning and start that transformational process and those movements towards where we need to go. So I'm Jen Hardy. I am the COO of the Academy of Emotive Action with Irina Alexander. And we run a company that supports business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, coaches, in all honesty, people who want to do better, who want to do better, who recognize the value of really investing in themselves to get to that next level. We usually have people who have done this and have done that and gone here and gone there and read this and read that, and they're looking for what's next. What's next? I'm ready for the tools that I can take on for myself. How can I start doing things for myself, with myself, and with the people in my life? I recognize our tagline that choice is not just gonna, the change is not just gonna happen by accident, right? It happens by choice, change, and action, right? I've got to make a choice. I've got to make the change. And I've got to take that action. And we host immersive trainings, workshops, and do private coaching, all of the things, retreats to support people in that space. So again, our objective today is to explore the impact of our social circle. So what do I mean though when I'm bringing up like the toxic ties and bind and all of these kind of things? Because there are all these conversations in society right now around like catfishing and gaslighting, and obviously there are actual abusive situations as well. And while I'm not discounting any of those because those things do exist, I'm here to talk about more of those nuances that we tend to just kind of walk over, right? This is why I said friends, family, right? Those things that aren't necessarily so obvious and in your face as something like abuse might be, right? Those conversations where they're just kind of nitpicking at you, those little things that are happening consistently, and they start dragging you down a little more and a little more and a little more and a little more, and you find yourself just not quite being who you were, not quite reaching for what you originally reached for, and not quite seeing what you thought was possible anymore. You're not really sure why, and then you stop and you take a look and you notice the first change I might need to make is my environment, right? It's kind of like crabs in the bucket. I don't know if you've ever gone crab fishing or heard this story before. You probably have. Some of you heard it from me before. Many of you have heard it from Dylan before too, because we both love this story. But we've got these crabs in a bucket, and these crabs, when we go crab fishing, all the crabs will get in the bucket, right? They'll all get in the bucket, and they're happy they're in that bucket, and they're just rolling around that bucket. We're in the bucket. We're good. We're happy in the bucket. Everybody's in the bucket. And so one crab wants to get out of the bucket. One crab is like, you know what? I want to know what's outside of the bucket. I want to see what else is out there. And this crab starts climbing on top of everybody, reaching, getting up, and it's just about to pull himself out and up out of the bucket. And everybody goes, get your ass back in the bucket. And that crab's like, wait, I want to go see what's out there. I'll be back. Maybe. Crab starts crawling back up. I want to get out of the bucket. Crab's starting to get up. Get your ass back in the bucket. Because all these little crabs want you to stay in the bucket. Why would you want to leave the bucket? The bucket is comfortable. We know what we're getting in the bucket. We know how this works. We know how this goes. We know how to support each other in here. This is safe. Stay here. Don't go anywhere else. So as I like to say, y'all got crabs. Yeah, you do. And where though? And who though? How are they showing up? What do they sound like? What's going on when we're talking about these crafts in our life? And those are kind of the people I'm talking about here. Those people who, when you start to make that step towards growth, that step towards change, or maybe that dramatic leap, that they're the ones that might be like, well, who do you think you are to go do that, to be that? Or the ones who are a little more passive aggressive about it. Well, are you sure you should do that? I mean, shouldn't you do this first? I mean, when I went to leave teaching and coaching, I had a lot of people tell me I was insane. I was crazy. What are you doing leaving in the height of your career? But I knew I wanted to go find out what else was possible. I knew I wanted to go find out what more there was. But I had quite a few people telling me, well, what if you just stayed a teacher but quit coaching so you'd have more time to go try these things, but you'd have this stability that you gotta have. And I'm like, I don't, that's not what I want to do. I just want to go try what's new. So sometimes these crabs aren't showing up as just yanking your legs down out from underneath you, right? Hi, Melissa. Sometimes these crabs are just these little comments, right? These little things that seem harmless and seem like they're even there to support you sometimes. That they're, I just got your best interest at heart. I'm just concerned for you. And I'm not saying that they're not. I am saying you need to recognize how that feels for you. Does it challenge what you're thinking about doing, how you're feeling about it in a place that you do need to consider? Or does it just make you feel and think like, oh man, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I shouldn't. And oh, because that's a completely different space. And that's the space that we want you to consider because look, here's the thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of something called mirror neurons, right? But mirror neurons are actually a part of our brain. And they're like these little robots, but they're like these little copycat robots. So these little mirror neurons, they like to see what's going on around and they're paying attention to everything. And when they're around something over and over and over again, they want to copycat it. They're like, oh, we're seeing this a lot, so let's do this too. And these mirror neurons will just start to do these things, whether you want to do them or not. And that could be something as simple as you're on somebody who's really pessimistic all the time. And while you don't agree with that and you don't believe that, your mirror neurons are like, copycat game, they're pessimistic, so we're going to be pessimistic. And even though your brain, the rest of you are going, no, your brain's like copycat. Because they're always observing. And they're always wanting to copy what's around. I mean, have you ever been around someone who's got that infectious laugh? That when they laugh, you can't not laugh. I feel like most people have that one person in their like circle that they know that like when they laugh, like you just get sucked into their laugh, or they have that smile that just pulls you right in. That could be your mirror neurons going, "Ooh, let's copycat that." But let's consider that when we consider our social circles, and let's consider that when we consider the impact these people were around consistently and constantly, and the impact they're having on us. We've also probably heard the comment, the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So let's combine that with the science of mirror neurons. If you're the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and let's just say mainly because of the mirror neurons, you're constantly going to start to copy and repeat these people that you spend a lot of time with. Well, if you're spending a lot of time with people who are really negative, pessimistic, and aren't really going for their goals, and have all these reasons and circumstances why things will never work out, how is that impacting your own success? How is that impacting your own happiness? How's that impacting your health? It's something to consider. It's something to be aware of. There's also times where we're in career situations where we're around people that we don't really want to be around, but that's our career situation. You know, I have a friend and client whose career situation has her be around some people who have a much mm, less driven and motivated mindset than she does. That's how I'm going to say it. And she's with them more than most other people in her life, but she's also at her job. So then it becomes, how do I balance that too, right? Or we can look at our family. How many of us have family members that are those people for us, or our significant others, or our friends? And that's where the difficulty starts to happen with this situation because there's a primal evolutionary level of fear that gets put into action when we start to consider, I can't be around this anymore. I know what I want to do. I know who I want to be. I know where I want to go. But they're saying this, they're doing this. And if I don't adhere, if I don't conform, if I don't do what they're saying, be the way they want, then will I be rejected? Will I be ostracized? Will I be abandoned and pushed out of the circle? That is some evolutionary primal level shit that is creating shame and fear and keeps us stuck in those situations sometimes. Because there's so much fear of, if I do this, then what? Who will leave? Who will disappear? Who won't be around? Who will reject me? And it's one thing to say it in regards to, like, me right now being on social media, putting these thoughts out to you. Could that happen to me by all of you? Sure, shit could. But it's a whole other level of conversation that we're talking about when you're getting into your friends, your family, your career, your environment, social circle that has the dramatic impact on you that it does. That's a whole other level of having to, how do I step out of that? How do I get out of that? How do I honor me? How do I honor me first? And how might that impact what I'm dealing with over here? Because I think that's where a lot of people actually get stuck. We can get you to a perspective of awareness, and we can get you to a perspective of, this isn't working for you, and this is having an impact, and how is it having an impact? But then that fear steps in. I had a girl who took a training with me. Shoot, it's been about 3 years now. And when we were done with the training, she and I were having a conversation, and she just kind of looks at me in this really sad, serious tone, and she goes, I may need to break up with my boyfriend. And I'm like, got it. She's like, but I feel like I need to break up with all my friends too. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that might be a thing. And she very honestly, she looks at me and she's like, I can't do that. I'm not ready to do that. How will I do that? So we had to have a continued conversation on the other side of that, because that shame and that fear, right? The rejection, the being ostracized, you're no longer a part of who we are, fear and shame that comes along with that just get fired, right? And it's, how do we shut it down? And here's the first way you shut it down. Won't be a surprise to many of you. You have to have a really strong sense of self and self-worth. You have to have a strong sense of what your boundaries are. You have a strong sense of what matters to you most and who you really are. I posted a quote the other day that pretty much no one responded to, because that's how it works on social media. You post something profound and you get no comments. You post you with a cute little kitty cat, all excited, and 1,800 people love it. So here's the quote, and it's from Brene Brown. Belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world. And here's the key, and find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone at the same time. As much as it's in our DNA to be a part of something, it is just as much a part of our DNA to have separateness, to be an individual, to have that uniqueness, to have that significance. We need both. and finding that balance. But you can't find that balance until you have discovered you, who you are, what you stand for, what you value, what you will not be pushed over around. And I get it. It can be hard to be in that space. I used to be able to be blown over like a big old tree. Oh, you're challenging what I believe? Whew, okay, I'll come over here. It takes courage. So I want you to consider a question here. When it boils down to it, because there's always one real big thing, when it boils down to it in relationships, and we're going to big picture these relationships, right? When it boils down to relationships that matter to you, romantic, family, your best and closest friends, right? They're all relationships that really matter to you, that are your closest, most innermost circle. Although some of you might not have your family in your closest, most innermost circle. And I get that, and I respect that. But when it comes to those close relationships, family, friends, romantic, what is the number one most important thing to you about that relationship? What's the number one most important thing to you about that? Just think about that for a second. I can tell you what mine is. Mine's communication. It's probably why I love communication so much. But for me personally, if there's not communication in any of those types of relationships, we have nothing. If I can't communicate when something's wrong, good, bad, or ugly, or awesome, like what's the point? Right? I need to be able to communicate with the people I love the most. And if I can't communicate with the people I love the most, I'm out. What's the point? I'm not even going to bother. I'm going to give them some time to get there. But if we don't get there, I'm out. That is my number one value. You've got to be able to communicate with me, and we have got to figure out how to communicate. But what is it for you? What's that number one thing that you got to have? And then when you get that number one thing that you got to have, are there people in your life that don't meet that? And if so, what are you doing? Do you need to walk away? Do you need to have a conversation and up level and be like, hey, this isn't working? And again, I think it's a lot more intricate than this in many, many, many aspects, but I'm trying to give you some quick, big picture ideas to think about here. Because another way you can ask this is, what is something who you consider someone to be really close to you? This person's really close. What is something they must never do to you? And yeah, I used the definitive, never. I'd still want you to allow your brain to think of it loosely, a little more fluidly. But what's the number one thing they should never do? And then what's that number one thing they should always do? Right? And for me, what's that number one thing they must never do? Ooh, it's like it's some version of betrayal, right? It's not talk shit about me behind my back. It's not go mess with it's betrayal. It's like they must not betray me mentally, emotionally, physically from behind my back. Or with, I mean, if you're gonna mess with me, do it to my face and let's deal with this. Right? And then what must they always do? For me, they must always give me the space to be me. I don't need them to agree with me. I don't need them to respect my choices. I just need them to appreciate I am who I am. I'm where I'm at. I'm doing the best that I can with the resources that I've got. And that's all I need from you. If I can get that from you on a consistent basis, we're pretty freaking good. Hi, Desiree. Hey, Desiree. So ask yourself those questions as a starting point, because sometimes just giving realizations around what's most important to me, what must they never do, and what must they always do, that's a start to understanding your own boundaries. That's a start to understanding what I will not tolerate. And if really get clear on it, this is something I will not tolerate, then what is the next step when that does happen? You know, is it a conversation? Is it done? What do we do next? How do we get there? And that's something you're going to have to decide for you. Another part of this is building emotional resiliency. So number one is I want to know what I value so that I don't accidentally, because it does accidentally get walked all over. What do I value so that I can respect it, so that I can live up to that, so I can deal with that? Because y'all, I'm coming back at work because we teach people how to treat us, y'all. Let that sink in for a minute. We teach people how to treat us. I know some of you are like, fuck you, but we teach people how to treat us. But we can also then teach people how to treat us. once we know what our values are, right? I say all the time, it's a kind of a weird analogy, but I used to be a circle. I was kind of shit. I was a little bit of a bitch. And that's how I was seen by a lot of people that I loved. And after I did the work, I did the training, I got into the NLPs and the landmarks, and I did all the stuff I've been doing for the past 10 years. And I came out and I'm like, oh, now I'm a triangle. Woohoo! And everybody's still like, no, bitch, you a circle. You taught us that you were a circle. Well, but I'm a triangle now. Well, I can't talk myself out of something that I acted my way into. So we are going to have to take that responsibility in terms of showing up as who we now say we are and holding those boundaries, even though this is how we've been before. And that's going to take a little bit of time for some other people to get there. So you need to understand what is your, I'll give you this much time, but then I'm done. Like, this is who I say I am now, and you either get on board or not. Now, granted, I'm shoving this really big conversation into a really tight period of time. But if you're loving this conversation, then you would probably love getting involved with us, getting involved with our immersive trainings, getting involved with our retreats, getting involved with private coaching, all of the different avenues that we have to offer. We build emotional resiliency. We build emotional literacy. We support you to develop communication tools to be able to enforce your boundaries. We help you understand what your boundaries even are. We help you break patterns. We help give you tools to deal with interrupting your own patterns and the patterns of others. We support you to up level yourself into wherever it is you want to go. And it's stuff you get to walk away with and have for the rest of your life. It's not like you always have to stick around to be able to get it. No, you get it and you leave with it. And you leave a new human. But I also want to give you something to take away now. So if you want an exercise that will support you to understand your values and how you can start to enforce them, right? Not how. Understand what your values are so that you can choose to be able to enforce them. Comment values in whatever comments section of whatever social media you're watching me on. Just comment the word values, and I'll reach out to you to figure out an email or a text, depending on how well I know you, to get you an exercise to work you through your values in relationships, so that you can see, like, where do I need to work on setting boundaries? Where do I need to work on enforcing these things? Because sometimes you can't enforce these things if you don't know what they are, right? You can't enforce these things if you don't know what they are. So, I've got about 3 minutes. I mean, my goal was 20 minutes, and it's taking me more like 30, and that always happens because I love to talk. But this will be posted up. You'll be able to watch later and to share with other people. But I think I can see some comments. I'm definitely picking up Facebook comments. So if anyone's got a comment to drop in, what's one thing you're taking away from today? It could be one word. It could be a quick phrase. What's the number one thing you took away from today that you really needed today? That landed, that stuck out, that shined a light on something that you just that resonated in a way that maybe it hadn't before, or that you just got today? What's that one word or that one phrase? And drop it in comments for me, even if I don't get it right now and I get to go back and look at it. Or if you're watching the replay, what's the thing you heard today, saw today, really felt through today that is gonna give you something to walk away with? And again, if you want to get that exercise, just drop the word values, and I will catch you. I'll find you there to be able to get that exercise to you. I'm gonna get back where I was earlier to see if I can see the messages and make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah. So thank you so much for being with me today. Really appreciate it. It's scary to share your opinions with the world and have the opportunity for people to accept or reject. And I appreciate those of you who jump on and listen. I know Kelly is on every one of these and all the things I do live, and I just really appreciate love. But again, feel free to comment someone else's name in the bottom who may need to hear this message today or who's needed to hear it. And again, I'll share it on all of our platforms other than the ones that we went live on today. And I'll be back again on the first Monday of May. In case you haven't caught on, we're doing this the first Monday of every month, whatever that ends up being. So I hope you have an incredible April. It is the first quarter's over, y'all. The first quarter is over. We are in April. When did that happen? Anyway, have a beautiful day. Have a fantastic week. And I hope to see you on the next Momentum Monday.